All right, so yeah, let's officially start. Once again, my name is Sasha. I'm in charge of events, partnerships at Wagon Tokyo. Super happy to host event with Annie, who is a UX UI designer in Tokyo. And Annie gonna be sharing today about the design system. Annie, so the floor is yours. Feel free to go ahead, share your screen.
Okay, thank you so much, Sasha. Hi everyone, how are we all doing tonight? Can I get some reaction? Good, are we doing well? Chat works, hello. Okay, can everyone see my screen? You should see like a very big design system 101.
Yeah, we can
Awesome.
see.
Yeah, so hello everyone, happy Wednesday. For those who haven't met me before, my name is Annie and I'm from Vietnam, and currently I'm a UX UI designer here in Tokyo. I am designing the end-to-end experience for inbound travelers, so foreigners coming inside and traveling in Japan, which we know is the numbers increasing because the borders opening up, right? So I'm doing that. And other than that, I'm also leading the UX research project at work, where we try to understand our end users' motivations and goals for traveling, as well as their behavior on our platform. Sounds like a lot of things that I'm doing, but actually I just joined the company this year as a new grad designer with no background in design. So fun. Right? It actually has been very, very fun. This year has been a lot of trying and learning and talking to different people, talking to engineers, product manager, business units, while trying and learning different things. Doing this presentation in Figma, for example, is one thing that I'm learning and doing a lot this year. So that was a first for me. And it turns out to be like a really good thing. And I can't think of myself doing presentation on other platforms now. Yeah, so that's one thing that I learned. And a very big culture in my team is one way to learn is to share. So let me share with you some things that I have been learning at work. So I'm no expert in this topic that I'm talking about today, which is why I think it's going to be very interesting to talk about it from a very fresh and new perspective, which is design system. Yeah, at first glance, when you hear the word design, so it must be something to do with design, creativity, right? Yes, that's also true. But then what about the word system? Now it definitely sounds polar opposite of design. Sounds very structured, sounds very systematic. So what is it exactly? So before we define what design system is, let's take a step back. I really like an interactive crowd. So if you keep on with the chat, if you can unmute yourself or like any reaction, that would be very much appreciated. Okay, ask yourself, think about the products that you use, like digital products or services. Why is that some experience feel consistent throughout and others feel like a mess? Why is it that some experiences feel familiar and easy to use, for example, on one certain device, like your mobile, but when it comes to your laptop experience, it just doesn't feel the same? Why are some products pleasant to use while others aren't? Okay, let that sink in. Okay, next question. Okay, who here plays Lego? Can I have some reaction, chat? Probably, maybe someone here have played it before. So a really great example of the design system is actually the Lego. Yes, a very popular game that we all played as when we were young, like Matthew said here. Lego is a great example because this toy design system that everyone here must have played or known of when we were younger, it's one of the foundations of what digital design system came to be now. But before what Lego was what it is right now, they used to be very bulky mechanical types of toys. And, it was this toy made from wood or metal, and it didn't allow the company Lego at that time to expand their reach and engagement. For example, making toys which kids would really, really enjoy and get addicted to, that would make them keep coming back and making their parents buy them more. And of course, on the product and business side, it was really costly to maintain the production line so that they can come up with a more robust, scalable system. So what the company did was that they came up with this brick system. All it was just basically a piece of square or rectangular components with some rounded top and attaches to another brick. That's it. And the application from it is infinite creation, as we all know, all started from this very simple system between two different bricks together. Now, let's imagine if we have two teams trying to build a car from a bunch of Lego pieces. Given the same amount of resources, only difference is that team 1 has an instruction manual on how to build it, and team 2 only have the pieces. Which team do you think will build it faster? Can put on the chat. Can I see which team? Team 1 or team 2? Yes, 1. I see lots of 1. 1, no 2. Well, it's very straightforward, but yes, team 1 will definitely complete the project in faster time and with even a stronger sense of direction. Not to mention, they can also avoid waste, spare Lego pieces that we ended up not knowing where to put. So having the pieces or resources only is not enough. Knowing how to put these pieces together is equally as important. So if you have that one source of truth to fall back on, in this case being the manual, and the pieces that go along, then you will be able to have so much more applications. You can now make a blue car, a red car, a rainbow car, all with the same building principles. And similar with having a design system, we need to trust and use and grow that design system because it will decline the inconsistency and gradually increase the speed of development. Design scales, but it only scales with a design system. So that was the broader perspective of what a design system is. But talking more on a personal note, this is why as a designer, I feel like I need a design system. As a junior designer who just started out, I really am not that confident in designing. I don't know what the best practices are. And if sometimes I don't even know that what I've been doing, is it correct or not? Will it work or not? So for example, maybe I'm designing this login screen. And if the user made an error with their email or phone number, what kind of error message design should I use? The one with border or background color? Should have like a close mark, or there should be no color background at all? Sometimes I have to make these design decisions and I don't know which one is the correct behavior. Or this case, which side should the primary action button be on? Should it be on the right side or should it be on the left side? There must have been other modules in the product that uses similar components, but I don't know which is the right one. Again, as someone who just started out and doesn't have a lot of experiences, instead of practicing my craft and gaining confidence as a designer, I actually feel a sense of insecurity to what is the thing that I should be doing. So that's where I feel like having a source of truth, a design system, is really important in the product and the product design team. A design system is a single source of truth that centralizes a company's best practices, uniting teams to learn, build, and grow products at scale. See that I highlight the word single source of truth and also uniting teams to learn, build, and grow. So it's not a one-time thing. It's not only for one person to use, but it's one common source of truth that everyone has to be on the same page and together keep on learning and building it out. Design system is actually very well developed in other companies and even in other markets. So let me share some example. This is Atlassian design system. It's actually published on their website and it's open source. So here, the company talks about their goals of their design system to design, develop, deliver. They talk about their brand, what is their mission, personality, promise, that they aim to achieve with this design system. And they even actually break down further what are the content involved inside of their system. And they even give instructions and guidelines for each of these components. Another very well-known design system is from Shopify called Polaris. So they actually gave their design system a very familiar name. So with Shopify design system, it's quite similar to Atlassian. And this is also available on the internet. They publish it online, and they even publish their code so that other companies can reference and even use if they wish to. Similar to Atlassian, they also have the guidelines on how to use the design system and different components inside it. In addition, best practices and do's and don'ts. It's the same design system, but it's tailored to the different teams, products, and so on. So what I recognized from a lot of design system, I saw that there were 5 main elements that a design system should have. First is their mission and shared value for that design system. When building out a design system, what is the goal that you're doing this? Maybe a sample design system mission can be make it easier for all members to do their best work. For me, this is quite vague because what does best work mean? And who does you imply? You here can be you as a designer, but also you as a developer, product manager, quality and assurance engineer. So you and your team need to have some common grounds and share the same value in building out the design system and going forward together. Next, design foundation, laying out the most basic yet most fundamental elements of a product, the typography, the color, the grid. Again, images, buttons, forms, how does it look like in default state versus when it's filled out, where there's a border or not. These become very, very intricate, detailed, but also very important elements when you build out. It's really important to have a very strong design foundation and also a very good component library. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's all about improving it, but it definitely should be there. So putting it into practice of all the nitty and gritty thing I was talking about, from foundation. So an example is that when working on a new component, you may, as a designer or maybe a developer, you would look at the design foundation. What kind of typography should be used in this scenario? What kind of color it should be? Are there any specific status for it? Is it rounded color? Is it rounded or not? Then you look into the component that has already been in that design system of yours. And then think about what is the guideline, what is the user scenario, what is the case use for the scenario right here. And when you put the foundation with the corresponding and suitable components and following the guideline for that activity or that scenario, you can put it together into something like this. So you're pulling readily made components in the backbone, which is the design system, and you can easily move it around and you can easily update it and put together something that's very beautiful and being used by everyone at the end. I hope we're okay so far. Hope I'm not talking too fast. So product is not like a one-time thing where you launch it and it's finished. It's growing and it keeps on improving. So we should be designing products for scale. You know, thinking ahead, there are many ways that a product can be evolving. You know, you can be having it on more platform, mobile, web, and now even maybe wearable devices, something that's incoming for the market in the future. You may thinking about adjacent products and services. So for example, right now working on a hotel booking platform, but maybe we can also be thinking about other products and services like flights or taxi, something like that. integration with different platforms, different markets and languages, and even moonshot ideas like building in different light modes, dark modes, and so on. The products will keep on improving and evolving. So it will start to become bigger and more complicated, but so design will scale, product will scale, development will scale. But it can only scale with a design system. A design system is not only more than a series of components or features or things on a Figma file, but the design system should be a communication toolkit. So it should be a communication toolkit that helps a cross-functional team to speak the same languages across design team, product management, developers. We should be sharing the same language when it comes to a design system that will result in consistency, uniformity, and smoother collaboration. So design system affects everyone. So whether it is what product you're working on, our design system, when your design system needs to cater to stakeholders that aren't only designers. And the key is to create a process where designers and different stakeholders are working together. Now you can imagine that it's always a work in progress. There's no final deadline for a design system. As you continue to improve and grow the core product, you will be exploring and implementing new features, new strategies, campaigns, and even embracing new ways of working, more agile, more collaborative. So you can now imagine how one single change that you want to introduce can impact the entire product, as it requires a lot of communication, time, hard work, and endless discussion with different designer, engineers, and stakeholders when handing off design. So design system affects everyone, and everyone should be involved in the discussion of building out the design system for your product and your team. Because at the end of the day, a design system is shared among everyone, every stakeholders. So its language should be universal. It can always start, doesn't have to start from design team, but I'm going to give an example of how we're doing it at my team. So design team have our ideas of how our design system should be, but we're also talking to engineer if the way that we're building it out, the components, the way we're naming the components, does it make sense? So we have our weekly catch up with engineer, and we go over it together, discuss on whether it makes sense or not. Should we try different things like design tokens? That's something that many other global companies are implementing. Will it work in our code? And we have a lot of bouncing off of ideas, and engineer can help us to translate those ideas we have into code. And then we come back and reiterate together. And it doesn't stop at engineering. It can go much more beyond that. Design system can also impact and influence products or business marketing stakeholders because it's a language. So it also affects how we present ourselves, what is our brand identity, even the way the photos that we select can also tell a lot. Even the size of the button, the color of the button can tell us a lot about our product. So we also want to discuss it from like a business perspective as well. And as I mentioned before, product scale, it can be for different markets, different region. So you may want to talk to localization team, whether those implementation is applicable or is flexible and accessible enough for different markets and different languages and so on. So it's universal languages for many, many different stakeholders, not only for design. Then that's why it should be a universal shared language. The remaining components of a design system is best practices. So learning, always learning and referencing from what other people are doing, and really think about why they're doing it. Maybe it works for them, For example, maybe this photography guideline works for Expedia Group because they have a specific tone and voice. But maybe for your own product, you have a different value proposition. So not everything can be applied. Maybe for Shopify porters, their tokens and components and the way they name their token in code works for them. But maybe when it comes to the product you're working on, it may need a bit of tweaking and switching. So learn from the best practices, but try to be original and be familiar with your own design system. And yeah. And finally, the last element is document. So all ideas are great inside your mind, but it can become amazing ideas when they're written down and be shared with others. So that's why a lot of these design systems are published on the company or the platform website, and sometimes they're even crowdsourced because design system is ever evolving. So why not share it with more public and get more feedback and improve it together? So learn from best practices, adapt it to your own design system, and document the process and journey. Maybe I've repeated myself so many times, but design system affects everyone, not only designers. So how can everyone be involved? Earlier on, I said when building a design system, the team should have a mission for it. And the example that I gave was that the design system could help you do your best work. But what does doing your best work mean to you? What does it mean to you as a designer, as an engineer, product manager, test engineer, and so on? Think about that. Let that sink in. What kind of current blockers do you notice when given a task, when you're working on a ticket, when talking to other teams even? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of clashing or inconsistency when communicating those ideas across in everyday life, but maybe sometimes we just let it go or we resolve it and we don't come back to it. Actually, think about those occurring moments. Think about those blockers. And finally, what did you wish the product could have had? What could have been better? What could have been automated? What could it have been? What could it have looked like? So document those icks. Remember those time that you were really struggling or you wish there was a better alternative. Write them down, share them with different stakeholders, designers, engineer. Give your feedback. Start the conversation. Participate in those discussions and contribute at your own pace, because everyone has an opinion and they all should be listened. And at the end of the day, design system is something that affects everyone and it should be shared with everyone. So everyone should have a contribution at their own pace so that the design system works for your product and it will keep on evolving as you move on and as you grow and develop and innovate your products. So that's about it from me. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I hope that I conveyed the message for design system if you're starting out.
Thank you so much, Annie. Yeah, so time for questions and feedbacks as well, insights. If you have anything, feel free to share it in the chat. And I already see a very long message from Anna in the chat. Annie, do you have an access to the chat? Can you see what people are writing?
Yes.
So maybe you could also read it aloud just in case someone is listening from their phone and they can't read the chat.
Okay. Very interesting topic, Annie. Thank you, Anna. I have a question. The process that you talked about design system starts from design team, engineers, business stakeholders, localizations. Seems like an ideal situation, but from experience, there's always something wrong or something that doesn't work out at work. I want to hear about what was the challenge that you and your team faced when you were trying to implement a design system for the whole department and involving engineers, business stakeholders, etc. Most of the time, engineers are already too busy with so many projects. How do you convince them to contribute sometimes to develop a design system? Thank you, Anna. Let me see if I can break this questions down to smaller questions. Okay. yes, there's always something wrong or something that doesn't work out at work. For example, there's a lot of things actually. For example, personnel change is something that always happens. So newcomers usually don't have the knowledge of why a design system was implemented in a certain way. So there's a lot of gaps when we try to explain why is this button designed this way, or why is it in different state like this. That is one gap that we have, and what we try to do is that we are documenting it down. It's not a very perfect solution, but it's important to write down those things that we don't feel is wrong, so at least that we can put it in some area to come back to it. So that's something we experience internally as a design team, is that we don't know the reason behind some of the decisions being made. And based on that, we try to think whether we should tackle it during this time or when is a good time to look to it. Another challenge we face is working with engineer. Yeah, exactly as you mentioned, they are already too busy with so many projects. But I feel like if there's something wrong, you probably want to do something about it. Because yeah, I feel like it's a lot about personal motivation, but if you can get the buy-ins of engineers or different stakeholders, and they see the reason why it's so important to implement a design system, then it's much more easier to get the buy-in and influence them. To give you a very exact example, I actually gave a presentation on what is a design system and why is it important to have one in the team, and why different stakeholders with product managers, designers, and engineer in a big meeting. And after that, it was purely to share my opinion on why we should need a design system, what we have been doing at work that could have been better had there been a more structured or more sustainable way to document those design. So after I gave that presentation, people, especially like actually engineer, like a few of them came to me and asked, oh, how can I access this design system? I've never heard about it before. And then that's where the conversation starts. And it's really important to start the conversation, because after that, people will do their own exploration and they will start to see, oh, yeah, this is actually something I'm struggling with. I don't know which color to use. Oh, I didn't know that there was a way that we can make it more robust. So to sum up, the way for me that I've been doing is to evangelize the importance of having a design system from my perspective, talk about the current state at work and why, give them very exact example of why of the gap that we are having and how it can be filled in with a design system. And the more time you do it, I'm pretty sure someone will feel inspired and also feel the need. So that's how I got the buy-ins from engineers. And after that, we just set like a weekly or bi-weekly call, because after the conversation start, you need to maintain the conversation as well. Okay, that was a very long answer. I hope it answered your question, Anna. No worries at all. Okay. Okay, let me read the next question from Matthew. Okay, great presentation. Thank you. I definitely learned a lot. Similar to you, I came to Tokyo as a fresh graduate too. I was wondering if it's always necessary that when you say design system, it refers to designing UI and UX. Right now, I'm not specialized in UI design, but I love creating systems to make things for efficiency. I was wondering if that is also considered design system and design thinking. That's very interesting. Maybe different people will have different perspective on what a design system should be. It's not simply only about UI and UX. That's a very big part of it. But as you said, design system is also about improving efficiency. Even the way that you develop, even the way that you talk to each other, the way that you think about a design before actually designing it. So having a design system, because I mentioned that it also includes smaller things such as design foundation or design components library. So there are many small parts to it, but they're not working in silo. We have to consider it at a bigger picture, and UI is a very big part of it, but also knowing how to use those components, knowing when to use those components and how to use it is also a very big part that I don't think is talked a lot about when it comes to design system. And yeah, so I think it's a mixture of many things, the technical part, but also the soft skills and the system thinking about it. I hope that answered your question. And then you have a sub question, which was, what led you to specialize in design system? That's very interesting because I am not specializing in design system. As mentioned, I am a new grad, so I feel like I have the fresh perspective to learn many things before I want to specialize in something. So for me, design system is something that because I shared in my presentation, but I felt very not confident in my UI design when I first started out, because I don't know what color this button should be. I don't know, should I use H1 or should I use caption body text for this certain label? So for me, I always feel that I'm not confident enough to share or to hand off my design to engineer. Or yeah, I feel like why is everyone so good at their design but not me? I don't know which elements to use. So that's when I figured out I do have a pain point. So I tried to see how it can be mitigated, and I realized that yeah, I need to learn about the design system. And that's when I started doing research. What is design system? What is our team design system is? How it can be improved and how can I apply it to my work? So I'm very new to this, and a lot of people I also feel are also very new to this. So I feel it's a perfect chance for me to share it, because as we yeah, I feel like design system will continue to grow and take on different forms. So if I can share it from my learning experience, people can also relate more to that. But by no means I'm a specialized in design system. But I hope you enjoyed the talk. Okay. If anyone wants to unmute and ask, it's also okay. Okay, next question, Alex. Thank you very much, Annie. Thank you, Alex. I'm a developer, but want to get better at UI UX. What resources do you recommend to learn and practice better UI UX? Yeah, if there are anyone here who wants to recommend Alex, I feel like you can also share with him or her. Yeah, share with them. You can also share in the chat if you have any good resources. Learn and practice. I think it also depends on what kind of learners you are. You know, some people are visual learner, some people are audio learner. I'm just a very curious learner. So I ask a lot. I try to ask a lot of questions to the right people. So if there's any quick questions that I have that I can find the answer to myself, I'll probably just Google it, or I just read an article on Medium or UX Planet. But when it comes to the actual work, because it can still be design work, but designing work for this product is very different from another product. So it's better to ask, you know, other designers in the team, how was this decisions being made? That's one way that I used to do. In our team, we also do a lot of design critique and design sharing. So try to organize like a small gathering with people interested in design, people who are skilled and experienced in design, whether UI, UX, come together, talk about some insecurities or concerns you have, share your work and get feedback. ask questions how it can be better. Just a lot of asking and persistence in asking until you find the answer. I think that's one way that really works well for me. But yeah, again, if anyone has any resources, like, yeah, let's definitely grow the community and share it with each other. Next question, Eric. How have you defined the various stages of maturity of a design system? How has your team's approach changed as the design system matured? How has your release strategy cadence changed? Oh, this is a very interesting question, and I may not have the perfect answer for this, but let me try. When I joined the team, we already kind of have a design system, but it didn't have like a name. It was just some color palette that we decided to choose for the product, some like text hierarchy, H1, H2, and that was like we needed it to launch the MVP, but it never had a big like a concrete form or name to it. So I believe that naming, putting a name on the things that you do, documenting it down was the first step that we did to make sure that the foundation is there. After that, we think about applications. What is the scenarios that we should be using it? Yeah, I think that's the stage we're at right now. We have documentation of the components that we use, and we have some scenarios on when to use which. So I'm not sure if you would call that maturity or not. It's always evolving. So right now we're also looking at best practices on how others are doing it. And actually, this was an idea that came from an engineer during our like weekly catch up. They introduced the concept of design tokens, which like, yeah, our team didn't know about it, but apparently a lot of like, Shopify products or Atlassian use. So we also listened to their opinions and did some research about it, and see whether it could matches our design system or not. So it's a lot of learning and reiterating as we go on. So we're definitely a growing design system. I don't think we're at the mature stage yet, but I think that's also a good thing, because if you're a matured design system, it's probably quite difficult to move some elements or change some elements around. So I feel like it's a good thing to be growing, and even if it's not perfect, there's always room to change that. Yeah, so lots of communication with engineers right now, and try to grow the design system as we go on, and as we experience more different scenarios when we handle like ticket work and so on. So I would say that's the team's approach right now for our design system. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Matthew. Yeah, I hope. Yeah, I think practices is really good. So I hope things will work out for you. Okay, is there any question left? Let me see. Would you be sharing the recording? Yes, I can definitely share the presentation slides, but it's actually on Figma. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Maybe it's your first time to see a presentation on Figma link. So I would definitely recommend you to try using Figma, even if you are a designer, developer or not. It's very collaborative, and it's always fun to try something new. I know some people do presentations on Miro. I sometimes do it as well. But anyways, I will share the link to this presentation. Maybe I'll send it to Wagon, and maybe Sasha can help update it on Meetup link. Next question. Chef, when developing a product, I often find it difficult to finalize a design protocol or design system because there are too many possibilities. Is there a good starting point that can be used as a baseline? Interesting. If there are any senior people with more experience or have experiences before that would like to share, please also share. Starting point. Oh, did you want to ask something, Keshav?
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks a lot for your presentation. I really like the design. Actually, the reason why I asked this question is I saw your work on, I think, MyMizu.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I really liked it, the overall website design structure and everything. And then I visited your personal page, so I was really inspired by it, and I really wanted to know more, like, how do you come up with such design ideas, or how can someone, if they're starting a product, they can come up with some kind of, maybe it's based on some color palettes as a starting point or something else. I'm not a design guy, I'm just starting in it, so I really wanted to know your thoughts on it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning MyMizu. Yes, I'm also working on MyMizu as a UX designer, and it's very interesting that you mentioned MyMizu because we actually don't have a design system, which we really should. But when because I wasn't there from the beginning, so I'm speaking from my own hypothesis. But if you talk about how to get ideas for like a color palette or how to choose like that, from a technical standpoint, maybe there are, thinking from a design standpoint, in addition to what color you use, you should also think about its accessibility. Like if this color can be seen, is it inclusive enough for people with disability, or like is it too bright, or is it not readable if you put like another color on it, like readability wise. So that's speaking from a like technical standpoint, but a lot of the time I think those color decisions, those design decisions that you make is to support your product. And for the product you also have like the user side, the tech side, and then you also have the business side. And for the business side, your product should have its own tone and voice. It should have something unique in its unique selling point, because maybe it's something that you want others to remember. So when people think about your product, what kind of emotions, what kind of colors, feelings, or keywords do you want them to think about? And based on that, you can get inspirations on how to present it visually through color or the font size, the font that you use. So a really simple example would be MyMizu. MyMizu means your water, and we are a water refill app where you can refill your water bottle, and we want to conserve ocean, and we want to reduce plastic waste. So think about that brand mission and product mission that we have. What kind of personality or what kind of keywords come to mind? What kind of colors come to mind? And probably the color you think about when you hear the word Mizu, water, ocean, it's probably blue, and probably some white. Maybe that's when it started. The initial team, they did a lot of brainstorming on how can they present their product that also represent themselves, their brand mission and their product mission, and so on. So I'm taking a guess on how MyMizu came to be. And I'm pretty sure it's not like a thing that you decide in one night. There must be a lot of conversations and reiteration. And it's really important to go back and forth and having a lot of opinions and discussions before settling it down. And as you can see, MyMizu now has a very strong brand. You probably can remember the color that represent MyMizu or the logo. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. So I think starting point, personal research, but also talking to people and think about what is the goal or what is the mission of the product, and how you want to achieve it. Okay. Yes. How has maybe missed the question earlier, but how has my team navigated the conversation around using third-party design system versus building an in-house design system. How was this conversation with your company's leadership in securing engineers to build and maintain? Yes, that's a very interesting perspective, because when the conversation started, it was by people that wanted to make a change because they felt like their work could have been better, felt like there were some issues at work that they want to resolve. So for my team specifically, it started with a conversation from people who wants to make change and who is willing to take measures and make those changes. So it doesn't have to be a requirement from upper level management. It doesn't have to come from designers only. Actually, engineer were reaching out and saying that, yeah, can we improve our design system? Can I tweak the code so that we can have more coherency? Can we start thinking about design tokens? So I'm speaking on behalf of my team, but for us, we started out as an initiative by people who wants to do it and who's willing to do it, and we're doing it in-house. And yeah, it also depends on what is the working environment of your team. Some has like waterfall style work environment, so the process may be different. We work in an agile environment, so it depends on the velocity of each sprint or the capacity of each engineer, each stakeholder, like designer who's willing to work on it. So maybe you're not going to be able to implement big change every time, maybe just small tweaks here and there. But the importance is that there are people who are willing to do it and consistently doing it and working together to improve it. What do I believe should be the decision criteria for a company deciding between a third-party design system versus built in-house? This is very interesting. Never thought about this. Many things. For example, I guess straightforward. Do you have the budget to be using a third-party design system? Is that third-party design system, how does it cost? Not only in terms of money, but also implementation cost. Does your company have budget for it? And what would it be like in comparison to having it in-house? I'm not really sure what's the meaning of third-party design system. Does it mean like you have somebody design for you, or are you using somebody's like design system? Maybe I'm thinking you're using somebody else's design system, and then maybe one of the consequences or risk would be that you share very similar components and design system with them. So maybe it doesn't leave room for flexibility or like personalization and customization. Open source. Yeah. So I think it really depends on your company. Maybe there are some legal requirements or some security requirements that you really need to talk and understand and talk to different people, because it affects a lot of things. It affects the product side when implementing it, but when you launch the product or you release it, it's also going to affect how the product presents to end user. So maybe business team will also be affected by it. So taking ideas or using open source are really great, but you also have to consider how much it affects different stakeholders in your team, and then second is whether it's feasible to do it. And maybe third is how much flexibility you have when using third-party sources like that, because maybe you should have some uniqueness to your product. You would want it to have some customization, personalization. So is that possible to do if you are using third-party design system? Yeah, Tailwind is nice, but will be taken into a marriage. Will be hard later to enforce. Yes, so that's a lot of dependency on that third-party system. So it's really about making a comparison and seeing whether it's practical or not, and if your team is ready to take on such decisions.
Oh, any other last minute questions? Go one more question from Derek, and maybe after that we will wrap up the talk.
What is your ideal working relationship with other product manager, engineers, designers? Interesting. I actually really love this question because that was the question I asked myself before starting to work, before I start working. To answer the smaller question, the design system team, because we are a very, very small team of designers. So our design system team is inside our big design team, if that makes sense. So we have maybe for example, 10 designers, and 10 of us work on different things. Out of that, maybe we do have 1-2 people that is in charge and who governs and who is like the master of the design system, but all designers get to share their thoughts on the design system, and we communicate with that person in charge of the design system when we want to make like the final change. My ideal working relationship with others, I personally want open communication. Because for me, I learn a lot by talking and interacting with others. Of course, I can, work on my own thing and focus on my own thing. That's something I can always read from books or articles. But when it comes to working on the actual product, like the product that my team is working on is completely different from other people. So I want to be able to ask questions and talk to product managers and engineers and designers openly about why is it that we're doing, why was this particular decisions being made in the past, what potentials our products can have going forward. I want to be able to share my opinions and ask them, and I hope that they will listen to me. I think in addition to being able to be vocal about your opinion, it's also really important to listen to other people's opinion. So again, talking about design system again, designers are very strong and very we really want to push for design system, but at the same time we're very open to opinions and contributions and comments from engineers as well. So that's why our communication has been really, really well between designers and engineer so far, if I can say so myself. So I really like that we are very straightforward with our ideas, and we don't take it personal, and we listen to what other have in mind, and we try to reach a common understanding in the end. Okay, thank you for answering my question. Your team is much the size of the product team, and we're trying to answer a lot of these questions for ourselves too. Thank you for your questions. Again, I'm only speaking for myself, what I've experienced as someone very new, and what has been working for my team. But yeah, I hope it's a good starting point, and if you feel inspired, then definitely start the conversations within your team as well. Okay.
Cool. So many really cool and interesting questions and feedbacks today. Maybe as a wrapping point, Annie, if you could share a little bit how to find you on the internet, if there is any resource where you're sharing your thoughts, any social media that are open for people to follow you and get your updates, that your thoughts, that would be really cool. If, of course, if you have any public resources of yours.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I feel like this is also something I've been trying this year, which is LinkedIn. And I used to only see LinkedIn as like a place to find job or a place for recruiters to reach out to you or for you to find recruiters. But recently I've been really enjoying the community aspect of LinkedIn because I follow a lot of product leaders or people in the industry, and they share a lot about, their learnings, the market trends, but also personal stories. So it's really inspiring and I learn a lot from them, and which really made me motivate to share my learnings on here as well, especially as a designer with no design background, but learning a lot every day. I feel like this is a very wholesome and very encouraging community for me to be in. So in the next year, I hope to share more about working in Japan as a product designer and sharing it more on LinkedIn. So you can follow me with the link below.
Yeah, that's a great motivation for people to actually create an open account. If you're not there, we are looking forward to seeing you on LinkedIn. All right, that was actually a very good wrap up. Thank you so much, Annie. That was a really great presentation. Very cool. Let's see if we can share some of the slides afterwards. I'm pretty sure people are very interested to see them afterwards, and all the resources that you shared also during the event. And thank you so much everyone for attending. Yeah, like as I mentioned before, like a lot of very interesting, fun, and very well thought questions today. Thank you so much, and have a great evening ahead if you're based in Japan. If you're based in Europe, have a great afternoon and maybe morning somewhere in America. Cool. Thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, Annie, a huge round of applause for Annie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the questions and stay to the end.
Thank you. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye.